This is Nathaniel. He likes lesbians. And I mean, really likes lesbians. Somewhere along the line, the LGBT community took a massive hit when he heard about role-playing games. He could finally play as the girl for girls of his dream with the other girls at the table. Whether or not they consented is irrelevant to him. Roll post. To start things out, this was my first real D&D campaign and my first time DMing. I had created my own world and own story. Nothing crazy or all that great, but my players liked it. This post goes over the course of 3 games, which I cleverly named Campaign 1, Pirate Short Story, and Campaign 2. They center on a player I will call Nathaniel, the creep in this story, and who was kicked out of our entire group near the beginning of Campaign 2. I don't know why we kept him around for as long as we did. People were constantly annoyed at him, but it didn't get bad enough to justify kicking him until it all boiled over. He had also been our friend before we even started playing D&D, so we wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. Sadly, the troubles I had with Nathaniel started before Campaign 1 even started. As a new DM, I was kind of a pushover, but I did make rules, one of which was to not make an evil character. All other alignments were fine. I helped Nathaniel make his character for the most part, so I don't know if he changed his alignment after I finished helping him, or if I hadn't filled in some of the easier stuff for him and he did it himself. The one thing I do know is that I had told everyone, including him, that there would be no evil PCs in this campaign. Somehow, he managed to slide in a Yuan Ti Pureblood Neutral Evil Artificer, a class he didn't know how to and made no effort to learn how to play. Being an aforementioned pushover, I let it slide. Big mistake. Another mistake on my part was letting him in on the entire secret to the story as part of his hermit background. This secret was that the person contracting them was actually the bad guy, and that there wasn't actually a cult, just a racist old priest lying to stay in power and get rid of the dwarves. Campaign 1. Campaign 1 started out pretty great. I had them start on a ship heading to the island of Causea. They had dealt with a cult in a pre-campaign adventure, which I used as reasoning to start them at level 3. And they did such a good job that they were asked to deal with a bigger cult on Causea. While on this ship, I let them introduce their characters and do some roleplay before they got into the actual game. They met with the mayor, which Nathaniel, suspicious of because he thought this was the big bad evil guy, he never tended to listen, and if he did, he would have known. Nathaniel decided he was gonna follow the bad guy up to his bedroom after the party left and be an edgy lone wolf, something that stuck around for the rest of Campaign 1. Nothing really came of him following and interrogating the mayor. He stole a book from him, which he thought was a key item, and that was all that came of it. Later on, the party was talking to their first lead on the cult. Obviously, the mayor was not too happy about his book being taken, and some guards came in to arrest Nathaniel. While being taken away, Nathaniel asked me, if I tell them the secret, will they let me go? This was the first instance where I was annoyed at Nathaniel. Even if it is my fault, I still can't help but be annoyed that he was willing to ruin the entire game to get out of trouble. I told him that no, they wouldn't even believe you, and prayed that the other players didn't notice. He then tried to fight the guards, was going to lose, and the party had to step in to persuade the guards out of killing him, which sadly, they did. Gotta be honest here, OP is correct that giving the twist away was a major blunder. I'm not even really sure what the utility or endgame was there. At best, he doesn't say anything and pretends to not know until an opportune moment, and at worst, he does something like this. I would not have spilled the beans, but if I did, I likely would have done something to the effect of what OP just did. Just defuse it by saying no, nobody here would believe you based on unsubstantiated hearsay without evidence. As a dungeon master, it's important to stand your ground around these types of people. They will take every inch you give them and then some. Letting them know that they aren't getting away with anything is not only a good move, but completely necessary. Knowing that, if I think that Nathaniel's gonna keep being awful about it, I would likely pull him aside and tell him that I changed the plot twist, and that I came up with a better one, but he can only learn this one by playing the game with everyone else. An easy out of a difficult problem. Unfortunately, this guy has much deeper problems than being a bad D&D player. The next time Nathaniel was a creep was in our very first encounter. They were protecting a weapons shipment for an orc blacksmith named Vanka. Her shipments had been getting robbed and they thought the cult was behind it. This fight started with what is still, to this day, probably the funniest moment we've had in any of our sessions. Our extremely stereotypical bard used Thunder Wave. He hit everyone, the party, the enemies, the wagon, flinging enemies into the surrounding forest and almost one-shotting half of them. One of the people he hit, Jackson, was a Frost Elf monk and started this encounter by finding one of the bandits hiding in the woods. He fell onto this elf bandit who was also hit and left at 1 HP. He decided that he wanted a waifu and spent the entire encounter helping her and generally being a gentleman. On Nathaniel's first turn, he followed one of the bandits who was flung into the forest. This bandit, also a girl, was dying on the ground. Nathaniel decided to loot her, and as the terrible DM I was, I did not have loot prepared. Improv time. I told him that she had only her clothes and weapon on her, and that there wasn't much to loot. He said that he wanted to take all of it. Cue the confusion. I asked if he meant her clothes, and he said yes. I don't know why I let him do this, but afterwards, upon seeing Jackson trying to get a waifu, he realized he could too, and told me that he wanted to help her. No way was I gonna let him help this girl after taking all of her clothes. He helped her up, and I had her killed by one of the bandits on one of the bandits' turns by asking Nathaniel if he wanted to try and dodge this bandit's attack, who was running into the woods. He said yes, and I had the bandit cut down the girl. After combat ended, we had added an NPC helping us, and who I could use for the story plot later on. This was mainly the end of his creepy actions, but he still did cause quite a few problems. He refused to share loot for the most part, always taking it all, constantly interrupting RP to tell us how his character was doing a menial task, almost always withholding any information he got. He had looted a letter from one of the bandits that clued them in on some story info, and he didn't share it with the group. And lastly, his character almost never spoke. Seshi doesn't respond and just looks at you. This wasn't the end of his creepy actions out of game. He ended up asking Alexandra, whose character was a human werewolf barbarian named Ilya, if Ilya and his character, Seshi, would get into a lesbian relationship, which was obviously answered with a no. Seshi died using a magic book and teleporting herself off a cliff, and did not want to make a character for the rest of the campaign. You always hear people say that the worst thing that can happen when trying to ask a girl out is her saying no. The worst thing she can say is no, just shoot your shot. However, all of these dating gurus forget the looming risk of you having a magic book to off yourself with. Not such a low-risk maneuver anymore, is it? I primarily feel really uncomfortable for Alexandra. She had to put up with the most annoying person at the table trying to be in a relationship with her character, something very few people are into. And then, when she understandably declined, he actually offed his tune. If somebody pulled that on me, I would immediately go complaining to the DM. That is completely unacceptable and really weird. The game was a buffer between campaign 1 and 2, so we could have some fun. We added some new members to the party as well, but mostly everyone kept their characters from the last campaign. Nathaniel had to make a new character as his old character, Seshi, died, and she was a druid named Thatari. also a lesbian like Seshi, as Nathaniel really liked to fetishize lesbians. The creep behavior started almost immediately, as well as just general problematic behavior. We had a good bit of RP where Jackson tested out a magic item on Alexandra, and did quite a bit of damage too, albeit accidentally because it was a necklace that casted weird on the wearer. While these two were having a bit of a fight in-game about how Jackson shouldn't have just done that, Nathaniel decided to interrupt, to go and bravely rub Alexandra's back and cast Cure Wounds on her. Alexandra's character promptly smacked Nathaniel's character, and this was the end of his creepy behavior. For a bit. This story just had the players go and kill and ruin the reputation of 3 of the pirate captain's generals. It all went fine. Alexandra swayed Nuzu, the poacher and whaler of the 3 generals, onto the party's side, and our bard, an elf named Sean, played by Aiden, went into action. When they went to party in the bar, he immediately headed to seduce her. I told him she was drunk, and as a law-abiding, all-around good person, he backed off. However, I decided that, you know what, screw it, retconned her being drunk so he could shoot his shot. After a bit of RP, as Aiden failed miserably, Nathaniel came in to steal her, and then Aiden got her back. Nathaniel ended up getting beaten, and Nuzu went with Aiden. Nathaniel then asked me if there were any other women in the bar. I told him yes, but they were most certainly drunk. He went on with it anyways. Our party made it as clear as possible that attempting to sleep with drunk women he found would not be okay. He didn't listen. Out of ignorance or not thinking anything was wrong, I had made a rule beforehand that I would immediately kill off someone's character if they attempted anything like this. Nathaniel kept going with it, and when he tried to bang the drunk pirate women, I had his character smited. He got pissed at this and decided he didn't want to play anymore. Later, going back on this, I know nothing is worse than what he did, but besides creepy stuff like this, his character also liked to RP a lot, and always interrupted to tell us about how she was looking at her starry map. Nathaniel has a clear problem where he is completely set against everyone in the game, seemingly only focused on himself and getting with other players or NPCs. The DM shuts him down time after time, and yet he learns absolutely nothing. Nathaniel is such an unself-aware nerd, I'm surprised we're not hearing complaints about his smell already. They played one more game with him, let's check it out. Campaign 2. Sadly, we lost a majority of our members, excluding the originals midway through the game, including Nathaniel, as we finally got sick of him. Once again, everyone kept their same characters, except for the new people, or those whose characters died. Only Nathaniel. The general plot of this campaign was an ex-party member of the party asking for help on his new mission. He had to stop dark powers on the island, which ended up being a cult. Another cult I'm not very original, who were trying to summon Cthulhu. This campaign got scrapped as everyone got bored halfway through due to boredom with their characters. A slow campaign and a lot of members leaving. On to the actual events. Nathaniel this time made a hulking, 8-foot-tall orc paladin named Shell. He never asked me beforehand before trying to make his character the head commander of my main kingdom's army. We're going to skip through the beginning of the game as it isn't important. My players had always joked about going to a brothel during downtime. No one took it seriously except Aiden, who was playing a bard, and Nathaniel. Aiden ended up getting a little side quest where he actually slept with a succubus and had to be found in its shack a little ways away. Nathaniel, upon coming into the brothel, asked to look for little women. I told him that he couldn't see any because I wasn't gonna feed his sick addiction to fetishizing small lesbians. Luckily, that was it for the creepy stuff he did. Still, kept ruining RP and butting in for no reason and constantly being a problem, but I'm glad to say he has been kicked from our entire group in general. I'm surprised Nathaniel could coexist with the DM and the rest of the party for more than a fraction of a campaign. No shade to the DM, but I'm surprised they could tolerate each other. Nathaniel wanted to flirt and fetishize, but constantly got shut down. He got to watch everyone else who wanted a relationship get one, but he had to put up with this probably perceived arbitrary treatment for an entire campaign. I'm surprised we didn't hear about some sort of meltdown, but then again, the type of person to do this and stick around for it doesn't read as the confident type. The funny part is, I have a feeling that the party would have actually been okay with his character getting a girlfriend. The party is clearly not shying away from spicy topics at all, and I don't think that a dude playing as a girl and dating a girl would exactly be off limits given the whole, succubus and brothel things. I think it's just Nathaniel's commitment to the worst possible delivery and being the creepiest person at the table that gave everyone else a huge aversion to him. But if nothing else, Nathaniel was persistent and stuck it out until the bitter end, which would be commendable if the thing he was persistent towards wasn't absolutely and utterly terrifying. Till next time.